Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. We have a busy agenda. The approval of minutes, the only minutes that I received was the October 17th, 2024 minutes. The other minutes I have not seen yet. I don't know if anyone has any comments regarding the October 17 minutes. I reviewed them. I have no comments. Does anyone have comments? No? All right, so can we have a motion to approve?
I'll place a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? It's unanimous. Okay, possible extension or abandonment of applications pursuant to the town code. Sean, you and I briefly talked. I didn't get copies of them, so if you can just run through them.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. So the first one is pursuant subdivision. This received conditional approval and signed signed subdivision plans for phases 1 and 2. The applicant is currently seeking a extension for phase 3. The applicant's engineer is in the audience. They have requested a 90-day extension, but I believe they likely need 180 days because I believe it expired on September 6th. If the board's inclined to do 180 days, that would bring you to your March 6, 2025 meeting. The only other item I would say is the applicant's letter doesn't indicate anything about the fees. There's a $250 fee for subdivision extensions, 90 days. So I would just say that it's conditioned upon receipt of the fees by the planning board.
And the reason for the extension yet?
They just have not filed phase 3 yet. They're still working through phases 1 and 2.
Okay, any comments? Or concerns? Do we need a motion on this? Okay, can I have a motion to extend the pursuant subdivision fees, whatever obligations are required of the law or the code. And can we have a second? Did we get a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Giovanni. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I think I'm recused.
You're recused?
I think I am.
Neil's recused, otherwise it's affirmative. Is that Luna Realty, Northeast Great Dane?
Yes, it is. You'll recall that you had a public hearing on October 17th. At that time, you closed the public hearing. Under your code, you're required to make a decision on an application within 62 days at the close of the public hearing. After the public hearing closed, the applicant made an application at the ZBA. They are still at the ZBA. They are supposed to have a public hearing with the ZBA on the 17th of December. So the applicant is actually granting you additional time. Their November 25th correspondence did not indicate how long. I would say either 3 months or 6 months, which would bring you to March 6, 2025 meeting.
6 months?
I believe so, and I think that's correct. This council thinks otherwise.
Council?
No, I think that makes sense, that way you guys have to.
Okay. Can I have a motion to extend the time to consider Northeast Great Dane matter for 180 days?
So moved.
Also.
Seamus, what's your name?
Neil. Diane.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Traskis?
So, the board has received correspondence from Treskis' attorney, Mr. Bob Green. He is requesting a 6-month extension. Due to expire tonight, it's subdivision. To be honest with you, I don't recall when this was initially approved. I think Neil may have approved it.
It's ancient.
Yeah, it's been around for a very long time. He's made a request in accordance with the code, and he's indicated that on November 27th, a check was dropped off at the building department. I don't know if that's accurate or not. You could make the same determination that you would extend it, subject to confirmation of receipt of the fees.
for 180 days.
Yeah, 180 days for him to see June 5th, 2025.
And I have a motion to extend the Traskis matter for our consideration for 180 days, subject to payment of fees. Anyone want to move that?
Sure.
Giovanni, second? Diana, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think I'm recused again.
It's unanimous except for the recusal of Neil. 31 Creamery.
That one has been signed, and an extension is not necessary.
That's done. Okay. Owens Road Solar.
So this has been signed. However, if you recall, the applicant had several different solar arrays, and each array needed its own building permit. The applicant's attorney had submitted a letter with the board dated December 3rd, where they had said because of the building permit, which they have an application into the building department, but they just have not received the building permit, they would like you to offer an extension, or they'd like you to approve an extension rather. They did not request any specific time. I'm sorry, they did 6 months, which would bring you to June 5th, 2025.
Can we have a motion to extend our consideration of Owens Road Solar for 180 days, subject to, again, to payment of all, any fees that might be due?
So moved.
Giovanni, second? Diana, thank you. Okay, any further discussion on this?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I recuse.
Okay, it's unanimous except Neil's recusal. Okay, public hearings tonight, there are none. Items for discussion. First item is David Dworetsky, application for site plan approval on 6.1 acres more or less along Pulaski Highway and County Road, Route number 6 in the AI zone with AQ3 and floodplain and ponding, as well as scenic road corridor and stream corridor and water supply shed overlays. A lot of overlays. This matter is before us for a neg deck and a draft resolution. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Marcello Sirigliano on behalf of David Dworetsky, the applicant.
Please.
Well, we were here 2 weeks ago. I think we're on tonight to see, trying to find out if the resolution is going to be approved. There were some comments about whether or not the Orange County Department of Transportation is going to have to be involved. It's just what we're waiting to find out what the board's decision is going to be.
And could you just briefly explain the project?
Sure. This was it's a clearing of an area on Pulaski Highway. The area was originally overgrown. It was a dumping site for furniture and other household items. Also an area where cars that went off on the side of the road would frequently get stuck. My client has since cleared the area, made it safe for cars to pull off on the side of the road that's needed. Also much more sightly than it was originally. And he's seeking to have a permission to use this property as a parking lot if needed.
And you're essentially here because there are so many overlay districts.
There are overlay districts, and actually the area that was cleared is more than the 10,000, I believe the 10,000 square foot minimum. So that's why we have to come before the planning board.
I just want to bring to your attention, your EAF stated that the hours of construction would start at 7 a.m. and operations would begin at 6 a.m. Is that still your intention?
There's, the construction's pretty much completed at this point. My client is before there's been violations filed by the building department. So we're dealing with that in court. And the court's been putting this, that's been adjourned until there's a decision from the planning board regarding this application. So the construction's done. There's nothing further regarding construction.
I believe the time for operation is 8 AM, except on Saturdays, which is 9 AM.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's for noise, not for operation, right?
That's right.
So
Sean?
I-
Ashley?
I have none.
So I did prepare a draft negative declaration for the board's consideration. At the last meeting, you reviewed the EAF Part 2 and adopted that. And if there's no questions or comments on the draft negative declaration, it would be appropriate to approve a motion to adopt the negative declaration.
I have some questions. Tonight I think I heard for the first time that the intention is here to use it as a parking lot. I thought that there was a possible use to put a car or a vehicle over there for display if it's gonna be for sale. But I didn't think it was for a full parking lot idea. In which case, if it's gonna be a parking lot, I think it definitely has to go to the DPW for driveway access.
Yes, it has,
And
the DPW has provided correspondence that when necessary, I hand-delivered that to the applicant when they were last before you. Just as any other site plan approval, they're going to have to get all their outside agency permits before a site plan is signed. So it's incumbent upon the applicant to get those approvals within the time required under your code.
And I did misspeak, he's not intending to use this as a full-blown parking lot, but it is for, if he needs to move trucks to that side, he has wanted to list any trucks that he's gonna for sale, or like he's done in the past, a display for different holidays, which he's done.
It's cleaning up 5/100ths of an acre,
Correct.
as I read.
Is it?
Okay.
Can we put something in the resolution so that we are not blessing a parking lot, but allowing that use of that as expressed?
Well, why don't we-
Maybe nobody else cares.
Why don't- no,
Yeah,
no,
is it necessary?
I don't know.
Why don't we get to the neg deck first, and then we'll talk about the resolution?
Fine.
Okay.
Yep, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Okay, can we have a motion? Is there any discussion to begin with regarding the neg deck? No one has any comments. I don't have any comments either. Can we have a motion to approve the neg deck?
Go ahead. Seamus has it.
Seamus, can we get a second?
Awesome.
Neil, seconds. And no further discussion, I assume, correct?
No,
All
sir.
right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? Okay, it's unanimously approved. Now to the resolution.
Sure, so I would suggest, based on Neil's comment in the application summary, adding a sentence that says no change of use is proposed as part of this application.
There's no use, right? So there's no use now, so there's no,
Yeah.
I'm good with that. In fact, is that gonna be okay for you?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm okay with it.
May I just make a comment? Regarding the no change of use, right now, obviously, originally it was an open field area. My clients made the area in order to be able to be allowed, and actually is at the recommendation of this board, to be able to park vehicles in that spot, in that area. And that was the recommendation of this board, and that's why we had to do the further EAFs.
So I think is parking vehicles as opposed to a parking lot, as parking vehicles, would that be something that would be permitted presently as opposed to changing the use to a parking lot?
I think Neil is hitting it right on this button there. It's being used now for tributes for holidays and 9/11, and he has some vehicles for sale signs. If the planning board's okay with that, we'll continue as such. If it's a full-blown parking lot for his business across the street, maybe that should be discussed a little further.
And that's not his desired intention, but it is, he also doesn't want to get any violations if he has a truck or two parked over there, or a trailer parked there. I mean, it's
Yeah,
also
that's
been an
allowed
area that,
presently. That's allowed presently.
Mhm.
That's not requiring any change of use, so that would still be allowed.
okay, that's what I just wanted to
But
clear.
if it were to change to say have vehicles from the the business across the street use it as a parking lot, then that would require an amendment.
We're getting really gray here, Frank.
Go ahead.
Help me out. I could think, the parking, everything across the street makes sense to me. But I could picture he's growing, and he has expanded out the back there beyond his original site plan. That I think that he is growing and may end up needing to have the space for parking of his, either his employee parking lot or for his business vehicles. If we're considering that, then I'm okay with considering that, but I don't think we're being asked for that, and I don't think we're just giving a blessing saying, do what you want to do over there with any number of vehicles that you want.
Would it be helpful if the board added a sentence that says that if the applicant intends for parking in connection with the business across the street, they have to return for amended site plan approval?
Frank?
Yeah, I was gonna go that way, right? Yeah, Sean, that's what I was gonna go.
And you could add that as a specific condition.
He just mentioned that they wanted, if you wanted to park a trailer there,
Yeah, that's
that
not,
would be part of the business, right?
I don't think that that's, I thought you were talking about people coming to the site, parking there, crossing the street, and then patronizing.
No, I think that, I don't think you have retail customers going down there. I think it's basically, employees show up, employees leave, employees park their own cars, and they have company cars or company vehicles. I think anything associated with that business, I don't think we're given permission to park across the street yet. At least, I don't feel that way. If the board has no problem with that, then that's a different answer.
No, actually, what I thought, what I believe we're doing, is authorizing the cleanup
Oh, God bless them.
of
Yeah, yeah.
that very small acreage. We're not authorizing additional uses. Have they asked for additional uses?
Yes, that's why they submitted a revised EAF.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
He wants to use it for parking, if I remember correctly.
And to that limited extent, parking some of his vehicles there or a vehicle for sale, but not parking for the business.
Well, that's, his business is across the street, that, he doesn't live there. And the business is a landscaping business. So if he has trucks, and that's the whole point of us coming back here, is at the recommendation of the board, was to revise this to seek permission to park vehicles in that area. So that's what
Park
we're
vehicle
seeking.
like a trailer, truck, and stuff like that, for the business.
Correct.
For the
For the
business.
business? Yeah.
Okay, but not like a.
Not storage.
Right. It would be stored
It's
overnight.
nice. What I remember is exactly what he's saying, and why he's, originally he was here to fix the violations, right?
Right, originally,
And then they
Philly-
talked about, hey, if you're gonna park a car there once in a while, you might as well use the property to help your business, if I remember correctly. So then he came back to use the property to park his trailer or whatever for the business, that's what I recall. Is that what he applied for?
Yeah, I was just discussing that with Ashley. It did come in under the notice of violation. It did require site plan approval for what the chairman had said because of the overlay districts. I didn't know the extent of the parking. I thought the parking was related to holiday displays and the occasional vehicle. I didn't know that he was looking to use it for employee parking for the business across the street.
Well, I don't know if he's using it for employee parking. And I don't know if he's gonna want his employees crossing Pulaski Highway anyway. But if it's to park
Trucks.
a truck overnight, they might be using for the next morning. It's also been used by the Orange County DPW on a number of occasions when they're doing road work there. They parked a number of vehicles there, and there's never been an objection to that, nor does my client object to that. The idea of having the area there is also to make it safe, because coming down on Pulaski in that area especially, people can be coming at higher rates of speed than they should be. And having trucks on the side of the road that can get stuck was always a hazard. So we cleared that out there. But our application now is to allow him, he doesn't want to be running into violations by having trucks parked there overnight. He's not looking to stripe it or line it as a permanent parking lot for people to come and park their vehicles all the time. But if he needs to use his property, he'd like to use that property to park his trucks, and that's what the application is for.
Similar to before, would be helpful to the applicant and the board if you had a specific condition that said that if they intend for employee parking, then at that point, they would have to come back for amended approval?
But not limited, he can park his company equipment
His
there.
vehicles and stuff.
Vehicles.
As long as it's okay with building inspector.
Yeah, it's just, listen, whatever's in the resolution is what the building department will enforce, so. As long as it's life and
So,
safety and
You're
there's no
speaking
hazards.
to occasional use or regular use? Or
I think-
parking?
It's a regular use, to be able to use it when he wants, or he needs. I don't.
Is there a limit as to how many people? I have no problem, as long as we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Are we talking about 10 trucks, 20 trucks possible over there? I don't know what the answer is.
I don't think you could fit 10 or 20 over there.
I don't know the answer,
Well,
or equipment or whatever.
I would say as many as the board would approve or allow. I don't want it to be, I don't want my client to be keeping running into violations.
Oh, I agree.
And that's why we came back, and that's what the board's concern was. If he parks a truck there, he's gonna run into violations. So we amended our,
Can we limit it to equipment parking and not employee parking?
You can
Something
do-
like that?
yes, You can do whatever you'd like,
Does
as
that
long as
work?
it works for the applicant.
I think he'll be okay with that, yeah, because it would be equipment. He's not the one who's going across the street anyway.
Yeah.
So for equipment parking, but not including employee parking?
If I could just add one thing though, Sean, maybe help me out. Does the county have any say on this with these changes?
Well, not with the use changes, but the county will require an upgrade of the driveway as was indicated in the correspondence, which I gave to you. So the applicant's gonna have to work out that on their own between the county.
Okay.
He's been in touch with the county.
You have that change, Ash?
So I've changed in the summary to just add at the end of the sentence, you're requesting the permission for the clearing and grading and to utilize the property for equipment and vehicle parking associated with his business across the street. And then as a specific condition, if the applicant seeks to utilize the parking as employee parking, if the applicant seeks to utilize the property as employee parking for his business across the street, he shall return to the planning board for an amended approval.
All right?
Sounds good.
Does that take care of all the violations that you?
Yes.
And the site plan will come back with the updates or revisions that required by the DPW?
Yeah, the way I expect this to be processed, Neil, is that the applicant will resolve their issues with the DPW, they'll get that all on one site plan. They'll provide a letter to us if the DPW comments are addressed, and at that point, I would make sure that your resolution conditions are satisfied, and I'd write a letter to the chairman that the plan's ready to be signed.
Okay, I would like to suggest for specific condition number 2, which currently covers no storage of any hazardous materials within 100 feet of the watercourse. We pick up also, there'll be no storage of use of pesticides or herbicides within 100 feet of the watercourse.
That's a landscaping business.
And not only that, it's across the
Yeah, I'm
street,
just
it's on the
saying,
same water.
That's why you're saying that.
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
okay, I get it.
So condition 2 will read, there shall be no storage of any hazardous materials or storage or use of herbicides or pesticides within 100 feet of the watercourse.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, make sure, number 6, which was an addition, says, all ground disturbance shall occur between April 1st and October 21st to avoid impacts to the owls and the harriers. Are those the correct, springtime through summer?
That was part of the DEC's,
That's right?
They
DEC's
use
letter?
the ground during the winter.
Oh, okay.
See, they have.
Just wanted to make sure we had the right
They
thing.
have
Yeah, they
hours
are,
and that's
it's
the
an
news. You got it year round.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna move.
it's actually, let me just. April 1st, October 31st. So
Okay,
10 more days.
okay. We ready for a motion? Anything else? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Can I have a motion then to approve the resolution as amended? Second?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any nays? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, is Joe here? Joe Batro? All right, let's move on to Milmar. Milmar Food Group, also known as Upstate State Corp's application for amended site plan and special permit for expansion of existing food production facility on 6.5 Station Road and New York State 17M in the CO District, AQ6 floodplain overlay and other overlays. This is a draft resolution. Is the applicant here?
Yes, David Higgins from Mike Tully Engineering and Surveying.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I am recused on this matter. I'm going to step out. You have conflict engineer for this.
Okay. Kelly here.
No, Jason Pinzagaro.
Jason.
Phil, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Well. Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Hey, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. So, as you might recall, we were here 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
and we talked about the phasing plan, which is essentially the amendment to the previously approved site plan, where we're looking to, Milmar is looking to construct the freezer building and the 3 adjoining spaces to that, and the access drive, the parking, and the stormwater management facilities as the first phase. I know there was a lot of discussion at that meeting about the frac tank that's in use. I can tell you that I just this week was able to coordinate with DEC. I don't know if you've received copies of the correspondence, but I had provided them to.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the DEC basically had indicated that the way that the sewer had been set up was that it appears, and Milmar confirmed in their letter to the DEC, that the sewer comes from had gone from the septic tank directly into the aeration lagoon. They didn't know that that was how it was always done, and they had put the frac tank in, I guess out of a concern that that's not what was shown in the diagram on the Speedies permit. I coordinated with the DEC, provided them the information, and essentially they sent a letter back, an email back, saying that as a result, it would not have to be amended. In other words, they could renew the permit. That permit basically set to expire August 31st of 2025. And in speaking with Jim Eldred yesterday, he had said that Milmar had apparently sent in the request for the renewal several weeks ago, and DEC is actually already processing that renewal. So they should be receiving a renewal from DEC.
And this is, I'm sorry, but this is a renewal to do what?
So the Speedies permit is to allow the treatment of the wastewater and the discharge of said wastewater into the tributary to the Rio Grande Creek.
What about the frac tank of the Holden Old?
So they had said that that could be eliminated because it wasn't part of the approved plan, and they could revert back to the way the plant had been run previously. So Milmar essentially can remove the frac tank and reconnect the sewer line as it had been for the last 30 plus years.
So DEC is saying that the wastewater may be disposed directly into the lagoon and then into the...
Correct. That's how it had been, that's what was reported to them, and they had indicated as long as that's what was always done, they could renew the permit under that basis.
Dave, you're talking about the domestic, you had the industrial and, is it domestic is that the right term?
Correct, so the concern was that the original Speedies permit had a diagram, and the diagram basically showed, let me just, I'll reference it just to make sure I have it. I'm getting the best information here.
So in essence, both could go into the lagoon, and we're okay with that. That's what they're saying?
So, yeah, I have, I'll read the email, basically, here. So, here's the diagram. So the diagram shows basically coming out of the facility, it goes to chlorination, sanitary, and then a septic system.
Mhm.
So, there's septic tanks that are involved, that'd be sanitary and part of the septic system. And then it doesn't show an absorption field. It was my assumption that that's what it was intended.
Yeah.
Typically, that's what, you know, a septic system would generally be considered. But basically, you know, what they had showed to the DEC was that there's no absorption field there. To their knowledge, there has never been an absorption field there. They haven't changed anything in the 35 years since they've been operating the facility. And I provided the information to DEC, and Bethany Tipping responded with an email that said, good morning, Dave. I spoke with Division of Water, and they let me know that a modification would not be needed to discontinue the frac tank if the plan is to run the septic system as originally intended. Have a good day.
These all went out to you this afternoon.
Excuse me.
They all went out to you this afternoon.
And as I said, I spoke with Jim Eldred yesterday. He said that they actually were already in the process of renewing the permit, and we expect that to be done fairly soon.
So as I recollect our prior discussion, there was talk about the applicant pursuing a permanent solution by connection to, if it were to occur, a municipal wastewater treatment.
That would still be, I think, a goal, yes, because they're still maintaining and operating the industrial treatment process and are responsible for, you know, operation and all, you know, compliance with all permit requirements of the DEC, which they do meet. You know, they have an operator that provides monthly reports to the state, and they're in compliance with those requirements. So, but connecting to a municipal facility would eliminate the need for them to maintain and operate the facility.
So does this move the phasing issue?
I don't think so. I think that, like, again, their main goal is to get the freezer done. And they would like to start that and have that done, and if that's broken out, that would enable them to basically construct it, close out the permit, and then seek a separate permit for the other portions of the building. So I think it does make a moot point, I believe, of the frac tank and the wastewater issue that was brought up.
I would like to hear from conflict engineer.
Yeah, as Dave mentioned, those things were only received recently, or just in the last couple of days. My opinion differs a little from his in terms of the domestic waste. I don't think it was the intention for it to be directed to the lagoon. I've reviewed the diagram, but I think it is at the DEC's discretion whether that's going to be approved, and the renewals before the DEC right now, and the conditions that we've included in the draft resolution stated that he's going to have to renew the Speedy's permit prior to, I believe it was prior to getting a CO on the facility. So if they have objection to that domestic being connected to the lagoons, I'm sure they'll make that clear. I don't think a formal review has actually been complete. I don't know who the person is that you referenced, but I'm not sure at
Jim
Tipping.
Eldred?
No,
Oh.
Tipping,
Bethany?
yeah, that, she's,
Well, it has her title on the email. I can give it to you on the paper.
So you're saying they
She
haven't
was,
come to a final disposition yet?
yeah, but I think that's noted in the resolution that the draft that's been prepared. So they're, one way or another, they're gonna have to resolve that, whether it's through, you know, some connection outside or some addition to the treatment process within.
No, we're talking about the domestic wastewater or
The domestic wastewater. The processed water is intended to go to the lagoons and the treatment system. But again, that's just processed water from the production of the product on site.
Mhm.
Again, I mean, what I would say is I was perfectly clear with the DEC in terms of the introduction of the frac tank and why it was introduced.
Sure.
You know, and again, and pointed out when I spoke to Jim Eldred, the schematic that's shown in the permit. And I told him it was my opinion that it was always like that because a 3,000 gallon per day absorption field would be a sizable field. And I don't see where that would be on the site. I don't think it was ever there. I think it was there, that was maybe a schematic that should have been drawn differently on the permit.
Yeah, that very well may be, and I think it'll be edited as part of the new permit if it's issued that way.
So is there a definition for domestic? What does that mean?
So that's toilets, sinks. It's not part of the
Food
production for food production.
Yeah.
There are separate drains within the facility, correct?
Yes.
And all the wastewater from the bathrooms or any other type of hand washing sinks, et cetera. Basically, anything that would come out of a building like this would be considered domestic waste.
Good.
And the production water goes to a different, they probably have an evaporator to get rid of some of the water and some other features as well, because a lot of water is produced in food service production. And that water goes to the lagoons where it's treated and then land applied, which is not often the case that you have land application with domestic waste.
Comments?
So,
Ed?
with this, I'm sorry, do you mean comments on the wastewater issue or comments generally?
Go for it.
Would, if this project continued in phases as they're requesting, would the freezer and the additional small build be a special permit? Would it require a special permit?
So they do have the original approval of site plan and special permit, so they're seeking to amend both.
So I guess what I'm getting at is if they do phase one and abandon phase two, if phase one would by itself require a special permit, it would make sense that all of the special permit requirements would be satisfied. And so the special permit requirements were like cleaning up the trailers, cladding, or screening the mechanicals.
That's all still.
Those would all be,
Okay.
yes, that would all be still included.
As part of phase one?
Before.
I think Jerry was asking if they abandoned it after phase one, when did all those other things step in?
Right.
The things as far as the cleaning up, removing trailers, those,
So the three things that I'm
Okay.
considering in particular are the removal of the trailers, the screening or cladding of the mechanicals, and the paving was also part of the narrative for the special permit.
Which part of the paving?
It wasn't super specific, but I assume it's the orange monster in the back.
So this would be included. The
Okay.
trailers that are back here would certainly be cleaned up. And I can commit that they'll do the architectural improvements for the building. I spoke with the architect a number of weeks ago. They'll do that.
Okay.
As part of phase one.
That's part of phase one, that's fine.
And the last thing, we had talked about not being able to use or restricting the use of that sort of connecting building in between the freezer and the
Yeah,
main facility.
these right here?
Yeah, and since that meeting, I was able to look at sort of the earlier documentation, and one of the other items within the special permit discussion was the use of the garbage room as being sort of a community benefit, because I don't know if the garbage is kept outside now or what, but would the applicant be able to use the garbage room? I know we discussed prohibiting that, but actually it seems like a good thing if the applicant is able to use that garbage room.
Yeah, I mean, I think, part of the reason why we were trying to limit the use of this was because at the time, there was an issue about number of employees in the sewer. And, one of the things they pointed out was that the permit, and again, I confirmed this with Jim Eldred, the permit doesn't have a maximum flow listed for the facility. They do have a maximum amount of BOD, TSS, those things. They're based on concentration times the flow, they have to do a calculation and provide this is how many pounds per day is going in, but it's not related necessarily to the flow, and they don't have a restriction on how many gallons per day they can use. So there's no, I know, Ashley, I think you had asked the question if there's a maximum number of employees not listed in the permit, based on that. So, but that was part of the reason also that those 3 units here were not included for use, as we were talking about in that last meeting. If they're gonna build them, and that no longer is an issue, they certainly would prefer to use them.
But I guess the fundamental point I'm trying to make is, I think we were trying to restrict them from using that for leverage reasons, basically. But if we allow them to use the internal garbage room, that's actually kind of a benefit to everybody, to the extent that they're able to do it under these circumstances. So I just wanted to acknowledge that maybe the use of that garbage room is a positive, rather than a negative.
Yeah, I mean, I think given the circumstances that just arose with the DEC and their determination that they would be able to renew the permit and it didn't have to be modified based on the information that we gave them, that, I mean, we would prefer to construct this and be able to obtain COs for these and build all this and this, and then come back afterwards and do the second phase. That would be ideal, but, you know, we didn't present that initially because of the concern.
And the only other comment I had was with respect to phase 2, since the applicant made their application, we've had significant applications made and some approvals granted on that corridor. And I know that phase 1 is 20 truck trips, but phase 2 could be 100+ car trips. And I don't know that we can sort of provide a continuance for that neg deck component.
Well, in terms of the traffic, we had indicated there was no additional truck trips. Again, they're taking product off-site, but they're taking it to an off-site freezer. So the only thing is they'd be using the on-site freezer, now making deliveries to actual end users, instead of just taking it to another freezer. So there's no real increase in the number of trucks.
In the initial application, it was 20 additional truck trips.
Per day.
That's what we have.
Yeah, but that's not
Okay.
that important. It's, what I'm saying is, that intersection in particular has gotten way more complicated since Milmar started this process. And I think there's value in looking again at the impact of phase 2 on traffic. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and with your question before about the passenger cars, I know in terms of parking, the parking's already there.
Right, no, I understand.
I mean, it's not, I know it's shown in green, but that's because we were making landscaping improvements and resurfacing, but otherwise the parking's already there.
Yeah, no, I get the parking part of it, it's the traffic part of it has gotten more complicated. So if we were going to do no more sort of the solid, extending their expired application, I think it makes sense for Milmar to revisit the impact of traffic for phase 2. That's all.
From an engineering point of view on the septic, if by chance, the only impact I'm talking about now is on the septic, if I brought in 50 more employees, would that be a negative impact on that septic?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
If we increase the number of employees, and we've heard maybe yes, maybe no, if we increase 50 employees, and I'm only concerned about the septic, would that destroy the septic or overwhelm the septic? And it's kind of a weird thing I'm not used to because I've never.
Well, if in fact the septic is supposed to be directed to the ponds, I would say no, because, Dave, what does the ponds produce, 60,000, 40,000 gallons a day? The production facility produces somewhere in the range of 40 to 60,000 gallons a day.
Okay.
So an additional 50 employees at 15 gallons per day is,
750 gallons.
you know,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a lot.
Thank
de
you.
minimis compared to the production flow.
Then the next question is there any reason why phase 1 can't stand alone and say they built phase 1 and didn't do anything more than that for 10 years? Is that gonna be an issue anywhere? stormwater, anything else?
The stormwater will all be done as part of the first phase.
Okay, yeah.
That would be taken care of, absolutely.
So there's nothing essential in phase 2 that we need because of phase 1 being completed?
I mean, most of, like, phase 2 is, in these buildings back here, the production room, the dock office, and the boxing room. And then the rest of this really is, I mean, this is already sort of a undersized gravel drive, I guess, back here. We're widening that, resurfacing it, and then this is all kind of more related to landscaping improvements and reorienting the parking spaces.
What's that building in the corner?
This one here,
Yes.
number 8, test kitchen and chef offices. So, I mean, I do think that they certainly can stand independently, I think that's the question.
That is my question.
Hey, Dave, I have a question. The Orange County Planning Department did send in their local determination notice,
Yes.
and they had a series of recommendations that weren't mandatory obligations. Each of which I think we've already addressed in our draft resolution. I didn't recall, the one recommendation that they made was that the refrigerant being used would be other than a hydrofluorocarbon, because it's hydrofluorocarbons, because they contribute to greenhouse gases. Are you planning on using various things that they're recommending here, which would be, I think propane was one.
Yeah, I can tell you that I don't have answers to that. I'm not a mechanical engineer. I don't know specifically what equipment they plan on using for the refrigerants. But, I mean, we can ask for that information if they have it.
Yeah, they're asking for alternative refrigerant technologies such as propane, isobutane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide, which of course is not a greenhouse gas.
Yeah, I'd have to ask them. I don't know the answers to
If you
that.
could,
I do know, Phil, that they're not commonly used yet.
they're still using hydrofluorocarbons.
Yes.
If you could,
Just to look at it.
what's that?
We want to just look at it?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
they would consider using alternative gases.
Do you want to make that
I'm not sure what we do.
yeah.
These are recommendations, not really.
Yeah,
They are recommendations, they are not required.
They're not mandatory on our part.
and I think most of these were included in the original review that they did back in 2022, I thought.
I do agree with Jeremy, though, about the traffic situation. My biggest concern really with that intersection is the left-hand turn lane onto 6.5 Station Road, or really the right-hand turn coming off of 6.5 Station onto 17M. Tractor trailers cannot make that right-hand turn. And I really blame the DOT. The DOT, when they restriped, they should have done something better.
Actually, that's one of the recommendations,
Yeah.
traffic now, so it's on,
Yeah.
not a requirement.
But we can make it,
I understand.
we can make it a requirement. It just means that you don't have to be turned down by a supermajority. I believe, yes.
So this doesn't require a supermajority because it's just advisory comments?
Okay, Ashley, where do we take it from here?
So the first step would be to approve a motion to reaffirm the negative declaration.
Now, if we reaffirm the neg deck, and the neg deck, as I recollect, although it was 22, I think when it was done, said that traffic wouldn't be an issue, but Jeremy is concerned about traffic. I'm not sure we can, at this point, reaffirm the neg deck.
So if you think it would be a substantial,
Well, we don't know. Where I see
impact
that.
on traffic?
I think we need to do it because they've got to move forward with refrigeration, and Milmar is not responsible for that entire thing if you've got two more projects coming across the street.
So you think we need to reaffirm the neg deck? How do we deal with the traffic?
So what you would be doing, which you might recall, your original resolution had required an impact analysis, an updated impact analysis be done before
Okay.
signing of the plan. So I suggest to add a condition in this approval to require an updated impact analysis and specifically require to address the traffic of then existing developments.
In the resolution?
Is it because there were developments that were approved recently that are contributing?
That's my understanding.
Wouldn't the impacts from that
Well,
traffic been considered?
Well, we haven't approved a couple of them, they're across the street up on the hill, we're waiting for those. Healy was approved, and they're in the process of building an addition on the side. Jeremy's been upset with Milmar crossing the street and then having to cross the street again, but it's actually worse going from Healy over to Stewart's than it is the
So
other.
the concern is what, the trucks coming out of Milmar?
My concern is that there have been a number of applications, not the least of which are significant warehouses that may or may not be coming. On 17, our traffic consultant has expressed concern with the volume on 17M. That intersection in particular, based on sort of the most recent applications, we're talking about delays of minutes and minutes.
Yeah, but that's not Milmar's fault.
But we require every new applicant to, accommodate the traffic of all the applicants that come before them. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's great practice for Milmar to be able to continue to use 2022 or 2021 traffic data if they're going to basically try to extend their application.
But if other applicants came with applications, wouldn't Milmar's traffic have been accounted for? Because Milmar already received approval.
But the other applications we've required them to, commit to fair share participation in the improvements that are on 17F. So we've had applicants that we're making them pay for that traffic light, or pay for, widening. And Milmar was able, by virtue of the fact that it was early, to basically not have to deal with that. But, different people on this board may disagree with me, but my thought is, there is a reason why there is a 2-year time horizon for something like this. And I think, part of our analysis should be, okay, you've had your 2 years, what happens at the end of that if we're gonna give you more latitude? And I think, though, what are we gonna do is we're going to restart the clock on some of these mitigation measures that we need more to participate.
Question, is there gonna be more, this says the project will result in increased truck traffic. Is that part of phase one? Any truck traffic that's gonna be increased would be part of phase one or more part of phase two?
I would say phase two, because the freezer is really not having to do with any increase in production.
Okay.
The other spaces do. That's where whatever increase was accounted for would have been. It would have been for phase two, not for the freezer.
Okay, so the negative declaration, can we just make it for phase one?
Maybe have to look at the whole action.
The whole act?
But just backing up to that, so phase one includes more than the freezer. Is there new truck traffic from those other pieces of? those other
No, I mean,
buildings in
that's
phase one?
dry storage, an access corridor, and a garbage room.
No.
So it's not really having anything to do with production.
Jeremy, I really think if Jeremy wants to make a motion to include a traffic study before phase two, I think it might be appropriate.
So the condition, one of the conditions that I had entered into the draft resolution, that prior to the issuance of the building permit for phase two, the applicant shall submit a revised impact evaluation and attachments evaluating an additional 50 employees, which shall include a traffic analysis that evaluates potential increases from then existing developments
Phase two.
before issuing a permit for phase two.
I think that.
That will address it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So therefore, they can go forward with the phase one.
Therefore, Jeremy, you comfortable reaffirming the
Neg deck.
neg deck that we passed in 2022? Or is the board comfortable
It's an
doing
interesting-
that? the condition that's in the resolution.
It's been an interesting application.
I'm okay with it.
I'm gonna say I'm okay with it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not, but I think that that will not present a problem for approval.
What's your concern still?
I don't think we have enough information to,
But they have to provide it.
He's saying before phase one.
but I understand I'm an outlier in this, and I don't need to argue the point,
Yep.
but logically, to me, I have trouble saying that we can issue a neg deck without having, on the whole project, without having that information.
I think,
But that's okay.
no, I think effectively we are saying that now with the resolution, then saying you have to do it before phase two.
Yeah, before phase two. Phase
Exactly.
one, they could build a refrigerator. Especially since they're running out of time with their lease on the old refrigerator.
Right, but I don't think the neg deck accommodates the resolutions. Like, the neg
Neg
deck,
deck is a seeker issue.
yeah, it's, I mean,
So I guess the question for the board would be whether the traffic now, as opposed to in 2022, whether you think there's a potentially significant adverse environmental traffic impact. So from what you had approved back in 2022, based on, I guess, the currently changed conditions, and, you know, Secret does have set numbers of, you know, trips that trigger what's considered a substantial
right, and
traffic
the
impact.
applicant could have provided that for our analysis tonight. And like, all I'm saying is, like, I don't know. And it feels aggressive to me, but like I said, I'm an outlier, I appreciate that.
Did you say before that the production hasn't changed since then? Is that correct?
I don't believe it has, no. I mean, they're,
You're saying you want proof of that? Just saying.
No, I'm saying, we're being asked to issue a neg deck on the completed totality of the project, and based on the evolution of the traffic situation in that area, I don't know.
I think truthfully, at this point in time, there are no big projects in that area that haven't been built out and are impacting it already. This is the background stuff, and I think it's bad, but it's the background growth that's, we're seeing. None of the warehouses on Police Drive have come into play yet. I don't think they have COs. Kedem is not there. None of our projects are there. I think we're gonna see a huge impact when some of those start being built out and impacted. But I agree with you. What we're seeing is the worst thing it's ever been.
And the extended stay and the other one,
Yep.
it's all gonna add, but not right now, so.
So a condition of phase two, I'm gonna put it, is that they do a traffic analysis.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the phasing. So you're saying right now, you're reaffirming the neg deck as far as traffic, but you're understanding that phase two is not going to happen for, you know, a year, maybe more down the line. And at that point, you're recognizing it would be about appropriate to reevaluate traffic, because at that point, there might be
Better
an impact
handle
that
it,
needs to be addressed.
less speculative and more real time.
Yeah, listen, we could have, if they came back 3 months ago,
Yeah,
we would have had enough time to, you know, make this analysis.
agree.
Well,
We're here where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone wish to say anything further on this issue? And the issue, when I say this issue, I'm talking about reaffirming the neg deck from 2022.
I'll make that motion just to move it. Good. I make the motion that we reaffirm the neg deck.
I second it.
We have a second, Diana. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Ask for
Aye.
opposed.
Did you vote?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, but you can vote. Go.
Nay. 6 yeas, 1 nay. Okay, next matter, in this consideration, is to affirm if the phasing is consistent with the special permit approval. I think Ashley?
Sure, so your code does, there are certain circumstances when a site plan amendment or a special use permit amendment would trigger the need for a public hearing. So in order to find that a public hearing is not required, you would need to find that the amendment is consistent with the terms of the special permit and does not represent a substantial change from the approved site plan and does not require a public hearing.
Okay. So, is there any discussion on this issue of special permit?
I think it's actually, at this point in time, phasing is reduction of the initial impact. It's less of an impact than what we were initially approved.
Anybody else? Can we have a motion
I'll place a motion.
to affirm the phase, affirm phasing is consistent with the special permit approval?
And not a substantial change of the site plan.
And not a substantial
Change of the site plan.
change of the site plan. Diana makes the motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Giovanni, do we have discussion, further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone against? Unanimous approval. Okay, next item, no substantial change from the approved 2022 site plan. You need a
Which is
motion on that?
That was part of
That
your.
was it, okay. And whether or not we need a public hearing?
That was all part of that.
Okay. All right. So then, we're on to the resolution,
Yes.
okay?
And I think based on your discussion tonight, it's certainly going to be tweaked a bit when we go over the conditions.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone have any comments on the resolution? Okay. If no one has any comments,
Did you want me to go through maybe the specific conditions and we just talk about those as we go along?
That's
Because I
where my comments
modified
are.
some, sure.
Yeah.
So the first one is prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall, and I'm going to add in here as a first matter is to provide an owner's endorsement authorizing the application for amended site plan approval. They had provided an owner's endorsement originally, but not for the amendment. B, comply with the memorandum of the town engineer dated July 6, 2022 and October 31st, 2022 to the satisfaction of the town conflict engineer. C, comply with the memorandum of the town conflict engineer dated November 21st, 2024 to the satisfaction of the town conflict engineer. D, provide sewage treatment plans to the town conflict engineer for review and approval. E, provide a copy of the facility speedies permit and any amended or renewed versions of the same to the town conflict engineer for review. F, revise the plan to identify the 27 set-aside bank parking stalls, and this is something that was part of your original approval, so I won't redo that one, it's a little lengthy. The same with G, that submit the SWIP. And then H will be revised the phasing plan to reflect that all landscaping contiguous with phase 1 shall be installed as part of phase 1. So now on to number 2. And my numbers might be a little different from what you have on your screen because I changed it a bit. Prior to the issuance of, and I was going to say any building permit, the applicant shall provide screening or cladding of the existing rooftop mechanical equipment to the satisfaction of the building inspector. 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, or this will be again any building permit, and at least once per month while the on-site frac tank continues to be utilized, the applicant shall submit receipts for all haul waste to the building inspector and town conflict engineer to demonstrate the proper handling, transportation, and disposal of on-site domestic wastewater. 4, prior to any site disturbance, the applicant shall identify in the field with appropriate signage, flagging, and or fencing the limits of disturbance to the satisfaction of the building inspector. 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit, prior to the agency, manner of execution and surety. 6, this phase approval is conditioned upon the applicant diligently pursuing approval of a municipal wastewater connection or, and it said, or new on-site wastewater treatment facility. I think maybe we take out the word new there because it might not really be new. The applicant shall copy the planning board and town conflict engineer on all correspondence with outside agencies regarding wastewater treatment, including but not limited to the Village of Goshen and New York State DEC. Should the applicant not have demonstrated progress in resolving the on-site wastewater management treatment by August 31st, 2025, the date of the expiration of the facility's speedies permit, no further building permit shall be issued for the site until such time that the applicant has demonstrated progress in resolving the on-site wastewater treatment to the satisfaction of the planning board and town conflict engineer. Such progress shall be demonstrated by, inter alia, correspondence from a municipal sewer operator conferring they are willing to serve the project and have capacity for such a connection, or a written determination from New York State DEC that the applicant may rebuild the old system, or if a new system is required, that application to New York State DEC has been made for such a system.
Can we just, instead of calling him the conflict engineer all the time, can we just put a firm in there, who it is?
I have that in originally.
Okay.
It does cite to them, in the first condition where I reference them.
Are we gonna
prefer to make the change throughout it?
I don't know if the rest of the board cares. It's easier to follow it when you just pick up a section there, who we're talking about.
When you mention it the first time, just put in conflict and engineer after it. So I think you've done that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Are we gonna go through and discuss some of the conditions that are listed as it relates to the wastewater? Because I think some of these were more applicable until recently when we just received the
Yeah, I think that's what
correspondence. We'll go back to these?
ready
Yeah,
for. I
okay.
think as I'm reading them,
Okay,
I thought I would just go back.
do you wanna go back? Whatever the board
You
prefers.
went ahead of me, so I'm just following.
okay.
Do you wanna go back, and it might be easier to do it as we go along, so.
I just, let me see, one C.
That provides sewage treatment plans?
Right.
It's my 1D now.
Right, sewage treatment and for you and for, my suggestion there, and the applicant shall implement the sewer plans in accordance with the approval. We're talking about, in C, provide sewage treatment plans to the town conflict engineer for review and approval, and then, the applicant shall operate it accordingly.
Well, I think that would have been applicable up until we received the correspondence from the DEC saying that they could remove the frac tank and reconnect the waste line to the lagoon.
You're saying that you'll operate it accordingly until you're not operating.
No, they have to be in compliance with the DEC permit continually. So if the DEC issues the permit, which we expect, they're gonna renew the permit ahead of time, ahead of, of the August 31st date. They have to comply with that permit, and they have to show compliance. The DEC is saying, when this was drafted, we were under the impression that we had to make some modification to the system,
So what are you suggesting for C?
that we be in compliance with the speedies permit that's issued by the DEC at all times. Because it's their jurisdiction.
Well, again, I don't know that, I think our interpretations differ, and I don't know that it makes a difference whether we leave it or not, because if he's confident he's in compliance, then it's not gonna become an issue. But I think it's safer to leave it in there so that you can have some mechanism to enforce it later.
Well, what if we change it to if determined to be required? Because again, I don't want listed as a condition that we have to provide sewage treatment plans for review and approval if we determine that they're not needed.
If determined.
Yeah, I think that's satisfactory.
If required. By the DEC.
That's fine, yeah. I mean, if, again,
Frankly, it's
That's
going to
right.
be reviewed by the DEC because at 3,000 gallons, it's gonna need its own speedies permit separately, and they're gonna review it.
no, I mean, again, I had the conversations with Jim Eldred, and we reviewed the number of outfalls that were listed, and I think our determination was that it was just a poorly prepared diagram when the permit was issued. It wasn't our office that prepared it, but that was our interpretation. But again, they'll renew the permit, or they'll ask for a revision.
So if you put it required, does that cover it?
Sewer treatment plans or regular use permit? To meet with provide sewer treatment plans or review or approval.
I mean, I think it's covered in some of the other conditions,
Yeah, yeah.
because the next one is that they provide this, the facility speedies or amended permit, but one way or another, they're gonna have to demonstrate that they comply. I think it's kind of noted a number of times in here.
Correct, yeah, and we have no problem with that, but I didn't want to condition if we have to provide designs for a sewage treatment facility for approval.
So what was
I don't know
your,
that we need one.
if
To
required by
the
the
extent
That's
DEC?
fine.
required by New York State.
That's
Okay,
right.
Okay. I'm back with you.
And I think your comment too, Phil, will be addressed by requiring them to follow the speedies permit, to comply with that at all times, which is in there.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Do you have anything before we continue on further? Dave?
I'm just looking, I thought I had one other circle here. I think that might be, I don't see the other. Up there. So that might have been the only area that's really concerning.
You don't have a concern about paragraph 3?
Prior to issuance, at least once, well, again, they're going to presumably discontinue the use of the frac tank because it's costing them money to have that, shipped off-site. So, given the correspondence that we received from the DEC, they're going to presumably disconnect or reconnect the sewer into the aeration lagoon and remove the frac tank. But until such time as that's done, I have no problem with saying that they're gonna have to provide the requested information to the town, that's not a problem.
Okay.
And there was I think there was a mention in here about the applicant diligently pursuing approval of municipal wastewater connection or new on-site wastewater treatment facility. They're certainly interested in doing that, but I don't want to obligate them to do that if the DEC is willing to allow them to continue to operate the facility.
But I asked you that earlier. Are you going to continue to pursue that? And you said yes.
I believe that would be of interest to them, but if the DEC is going to allow them to continue to use the facility, I don't want to obligate my client to enter into an agreement for a municipal facility if they have another option.
Which one is that?
It's the new number 6.
So I did change that to say diligently pursuing approval of municipal wastewater connection or on-site wastewater.
Oh, so you took out the word new?
So I took out the word new.
Okay,
Okay.
got it, okay, then that's fine.
Okay. Anything else, Dave? Anything?
No, I think, and what number were we up to?
I think we're up to 8, I believe.
So prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the freezer.
Mhm.
And this one I think may want to change based on your earlier discussions, that prior to the issuance, I don't know if you want to just say for phase 1 on in general, or if you wanted to call out the freezer separately. I know at the time, when you were here 2 weeks ago, I think that was the intent, because of the wastewater issue. It was going to be limited to a CO for the freezer, or to have this satisfied before then, but whether the board is okay with issuing a CO for all of phase 1 at the same time, once you have the approval of the wastewater.
Frank, you have any comment on that?
No, I'm okay.
So prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for phase 1 or a building permit for phase 2, the applicant must have approval to connect to a municipal wastewater treatment system or approval from New York State DEC for, and I'll take out the word new again, an on-site wastewater
That's where it includes both.
treatment program.
Okay.
The next one. Prior to the issuance of a building permit for phase 2, the applicant shall submit a revised impact evaluation and attachments evaluating an additional 50 employees, which shall include a traffic analysis that evaluates potential increases from then existing developments.
Existing or proposed developments is the way we typically.
Existing or proposed.
And, I mean, that's the way we usually approach it.
They included it.
That's usually the way it's worded.
Sure.
Where else it needs.
And does that imply that if there is an impact requiring mitigation, that we'll have the right to impose that? I mean, we're talking about the provision of a study, but does that also provide us latitude to require mitigation?
If you don't feel that mitigation is, if you feel that there's mitigation that's required, you're not obligated to issue a building permit for phase 2 for that condition. So at that time, you could impose, you could require them to implement that mitigation or not receive the building permit for phase 2.
So we don't typically see an applicant before they receive a building permit. Is there a mechanism for us to receive these
Sure,
impact
so
evaluations?
I think we'll say, we'll clarify, the applicant shall submit a revised impact evaluation and adjustments to the planning board, evaluating an additional 50 employees, which shall include a traffic analysis that evaluates potential increases from then existing or proposed developments. So that'll require it to submit to the planning board for review.
I think Jeremy's question, Jeremy,
Add
if I
in
may.
there requiring that the applicant shall comply with any mitigation measures determined necessary by the planning board, based on that?
Yeah,
Covers it.
Yeah.
Covers it.
Okay with that, Dave?
Yep.
Number 11?
So that one, I think we'll be taking out because you're going to, you originally said no CO for the other elements of phase 1 would be allowed until completion of phase 2, but we've modified the condition earlier to say all of phase 1 could get a CO upon resolving the wastewater issue.
Do we not want to say somewhere in here that the number of employees at any one time shall not exceed 50? Oh, whatever the number is.
Well,
So that's where I
the next
think I had that, and I had it blank because I know that that's why you had originally required this impact analysis for your original approval, that once they were gonna, in order to have the plan signed, you would need to do that impact analysis to add another 50 employees. So my question was, what is the current, or the, existing number of employees that were allowed by your original approval? And then any increase of that, I would say, any increase above that is, you would want to have.
No recollection of
I don't think that the original approval specified a maximum number of employees. It specified that we evaluate the impact of whatever
Additional.
50 more would be.
So that the if you're having to evaluate 50 more, that
Yeah, I know what that-
means whatever was there currently was,
And I know when we did the initial analysis, their employee count varied greatly from week to week because their seasonal food production. One week it was 320, the next week it was 190. It was, never seen anything like it, but that's what they had week to week. So I don't believe that the planning board ever said, this is your baseline for your number of employees and this is the maximum you can
I
have.
know it varies, so,
It was such a complex discussion at the time. I think all parties just determined that, let's call it 50 for the new addition, and
okay.
just sort of,
Wasn't there also an issue that, or maybe that number came out of the possible application to the IDA?
Oh, yeah. It did.
So that's where the number came up, I think.
for sure.
You can mention peak existing number of employees with additional 50. Can I say that?
Well, do we, what is our interest in capping the number of employees? When we had a wastewater concern.
And that's what the concern was, and I think now by having, requiring the impact analysis for the additional 50 and the traffic analysis before phase 2, I think my understanding is phase 1 is not going to add any additional employees, so that wouldn't be.
Right, can that whole the number of employees paragraph be deleted with
That was gonna be my
Yeah.
suggestion. Do we actually need this condition?
No, I think that could be deleted.
Okay, good.
Or I guess you might want to say no certificate of occupancy for any phase 2 improvement shall be issued unless and until you have that municipal wastewater system connection or adequate wastewater.
Didn't we already say that? Yeah, I think we did.
Did you already say that?
I think we did.
Yeah,
Just check it.
Number 8.
that. Yeah,
Number
you
eight?
took out the word new on that paragraph that
Yeah,
you're referring to.
Number 8.
Yeah. All right, do I freeze it?
Okay, yeah. The applicant shall demonstrate compliance with its renewed species permit, including but not limited to disposition of domestic waste, disposition of processed waste, and the approved process diagram when the permit has been renewed and at all times thereafter. The applicant shall provide the building department with a copy of a new operations agreement with its wastewater operator indicating that the operator is responsible for operating both the domestic and industrial wastewater facilities. And then prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy, A, the storage trailer shall be removed from the property. B, all exterior sides of the buildings will be cleaned and repainted except the existing mural along the eastern side of the building. C, any retaining wall over 4 feet in height shall be designed by a licensed New York State engineer in accordance with New York State Building Code. The applicant shall provide a certification from a licensed New York State professional engineer that the proposed retaining wall has been constructed in substantial conformance with the approved plan, engineering calculations, and construction details. D, the applicant shall, unless otherwise determined by the town highway superintendent, install at least one share the road sign in each direction between the applicant's property and the Heritage Trail. These signs shall be installed with the right of way as approved by the town highway superintendent. And then the remaining of the conditions were all carried over from your original approval. But the only change being having your conflict engineer review things where previously it was going to be the town engineer.
Okay. Any further discussion on the resolution? Okay, so can we have a motion to approve the resolution as amended? Neil? And Giovanni second. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous, approved. Congratulations.
Great, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Take care.
Yep, you too, have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
See you in 23 and a half months?
Hopefully soon.
So I had to do it.
That's okay. I don't blame you, guys.
Just hit the middle TV button.
That momentum.
I get your motion, has to stay in motion.
All right, have a good night, everybody.
Except for Sean. He's never in motion.
Next item on the agenda is Bachman, 3-car garage in the Carriage House. Application for amended site plan approval for a garage carriage house on 2 acres more or less along Houston and RU zone, in the RU zone with AQ3 and other overlay districts. Initial presentation and commencement of season. Applicant is here. Welcome. Your name?
Justin Bachman.
Would you let us with your presentation?
Sure. I don't know what you have in front of you, but to refresh your memories, I was here maybe about a year ago. As you mentioned, a 3-car garage with a carriage house. It's, I guess, part of some sort of, I don't know the proper terminology, so correct me if I'm wrong, an overlay or some sort of non-disturbing area, my property. So with that is a 50-foot buffer, 25 feet of which is not to be disturbed. The other 25 feet is not to be built upon. When we staked the addition or the garage, you know, my builder was meticulous about it. I was there. We worked off of the prior survey. However, after having the survey done after the project was completed, as was required, we found that a portion of the garage wound up being about, I want to say, 3 feet, 10 inches or something along those lines, into that little buffer, but yet still, you know, 46, 47 feet away from my property line. So with that, with Grace's guidance, strength, I had to submit another application, and that's what I'm here for.
Okay.
We'd like to just add a little bit more to that.
Sure.
So your original approval was back in May of '23, and at that time you had a specific condition that required the applicant to identify the 20-foot no-build buffer. There's a 25-foot no disturbance, and then 25 feet off of that, no build. They're supposed to identify that in the field. I'm not sure if they did. It sounds like they attempted to. And then you also had a condition that required them to submit an as-built survey prior to issuance of the CO. When the building department received the as-built survey, it showed encroachment into that buffer. It's the actual structure, it encroaches by 3.5 feet. I believe there's also a masonry wall, there's a very small portion of the driveway. So this is before you right now because I believe the building department issued a notice of violation on it, and the applicant's trying to resolve that issue. So if they ever do a municipal search on it, it would come up as a violation.
Sure, so this would require an amended site plan approval from the board. It would be an unlisted action under seeker. And it's not require a referral to the county, it's exempt under your agreement. And I've been looking into, you know, the genesis of this offer, this 25-foot and the 25-foot, whether it's something, seems like it was imposed during the subdivision approval originally, but you need to review whether you have the ability to modify that and how to go about that.
We would need to review whether or not we have the authority.
Or whether it's something that might need a variance. I don't think the actual 50 feet, from what I've been able to define, I don't think the actual 50 foot of 25 and 25 is something set in the code. It seems like it was something that was set by the planning board at the time of the subdivision approval, but the difference being adjacent to the farm. I don't know if anyone recalls, I think it was 2009, 2011.
I think we had a weird zoning code at that point in time.
Okay, so it could have been
I think what
different.
happens is, I think at that point in time, I think it still exists in our code, that during subdivision approval, each subdivision can have its own setbacks assigned to it by the planning board. So it is at least possible that this planning board said the setback will be 50 feet in this subdivision, and therefore that becomes the code for the subdivision, and therefore it might need a variance. I don't know if that's true, but I know our code is written that way, that each subdivision can have its own setbacks and built through lines otherwise.
So at this point, we declare our intent to be lead agency?
Because I don't believe that, well, I guess depends on the ZBA would be to the extent variance is needed. You could declare your intent and classify it as an unlisted action.
And that would be my motion. We have that motion? Who made it? Second. Giovanni makes the motion, second by Jeremy. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. And next would be the
This does
applicant.
require a public hearing as well. I don't, it does, I believe, for amending subdivision.
No, it's
And then
subdivision,
subdivision,
site plan
yes.
review section.
And would that be before or after ZBA review?
I think it was,
If
We
they
would have to
did,
complete secret before before having their hearing, so I think we need to do a little more research here and let you know the path, and
So at this point, what action can we take?
so that would be all for this evening,
Okay,
until we have more clarity on what occurred back then and what you're able to do.
okay. That's all we can do tonight, so thank you.
Okay. Any steps I need to take from this point forward?
No, we'll be in contact if we need any other information from you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Next item on the agenda is Marte Holding Group. This is application for amended site plan approval for 3 single-family dwellings near the off of Reservoir Road and Lower Reservoir Road in the RU zone and other zones. Initial presentation and commencement of seekers. The applicant.
Yeah, Juan Jesus with NGS Engineering.
Welcome.
We also have the applicant as well. We have Carlos Marte and Jackson Marte.
Welcome.
So this plan previously was before the board. It was for 3 single-family dwellings. They were all 2 bedrooms. We're proposing the same thing at this time. On January 18th, this did receive conditional approval from the planning board. Since then, our client, he has had some concerns about the location of the dwellings as well as the driveway. So when you're looking at this plan, you can actually see it's grayed out. May actually be a little better. This, like the reddish color here is where the homes previously were, as well as the driveway. And then where we're proposing them now are these pink outlines and then the blue lines for the driveway. So that just shows the change. As far as the dwellings, like I said, there's still the same number of bedrooms. However, previously, these dwellings were actually 2-story, upstairs and downstairs. And for our client, and looking at the long-term picture, since this is going to be for themselves, their mother-in-law, this is, you know, their retirement home, they decided that they no longer wanted to have the 2 floors. They just wanted to have ranchers instead. So with that came, instead of having a footprint of 750 feet, now we have a footprint that's 1,950 square feet, since it's all on 1 floor. So when you talk about the livable floor space, you know, the literal dwelling space is actually about a 25% increase, but then the actual footprint itself is more than twice as what it was before. And then for the driveway, our client, you know, they saw the driveway, they said, you know, if their son, mother-in-law is going, or mother, depending who you're talking to, is going to the last house there, they don't want them driving by and then they just hear them going past the bedroom window. So they did just move this driveway, straightened it out and moved it back so that you wouldn't hear anything along the houses. Previously, if a UPS truck, somebody came off the road on accident, they'd have to turn around right next to the home. So they just put a designated area to turn around there. And that is the major extent of the changes. And then just with the septic, just pushed it back a little bit. And then when we submitted this to the town engineer, out of an abundance of caution, he just wanted it to be presented to the planning board, so you guys can have a look at it.
Well,
It's not out of an abundance of caution, it's a change to the approved plan, so.
Yeah. And then if the board would like to hear more from the applicant, they are willing to speak as well today.
if the applicant would like to say anything, I think we get the gist.
Yeah, I mean, it just basically, when we initially came up with this plan, I don't think we thought about our parents in the future. So, you know, we had this great idea of having this beautiful, cozy, you know, lofty space upstairs. And it was actually one of the board members that mentioned, well, what about when your parents get older, how are they gonna get upstairs? So we left here saying, yeah, how are they gonna get upstairs, right? And so, you know, I mean, again, this is for the future. This is not like right now. If my mom knew that I was here telling you she might not be able to get up the stairs, she'll deny it, right? So anyway, so that's why we had to make this adjustment.
Sean?
Yeah, the only item I have to mention is the septic and the wells under the Department of Health jurisdiction, so it's under my board.
So when they came here initially, I think we were all taken by the fact that they were sort of like baby houses.
Yes.
And it's kind of a neat idea. Were there any decisions that we made that were dictated by the footprint of the houses being so small? Like the fact that they're much bigger now, do we care about that from a planning board perspective?
Yes, I think that you considered that when you were reviewing the findings that you have to make for the reservoir. There's certain findings, I think one of them may be aesthetics and things like that. I'm not saying that this violates those findings, I'm just saying that when I received a plan for the chairman's signature, it doesn't comply with what was approved. I don't know if you would have necessarily made the same findings with this plan, so that's why it's before you right now.
So it's sort of aesthetics as it relates to the reservoir.
Yep, and also stormwater runoff from those items as well. A larger footprint, more runoff, more pervious surface.
Okay, Ashley, what's next step?
So as far as procedurally, it is a type 2 action under secret. You'll be able to classify it this evening. It does require referral to the county. I made that referral earlier today. There is a requirement for a public hearing for major site plan. This is a major site plan amendment. If you find that it's a substantial change from the approved plans, based on the increase in size of the dwellings, I think it'd be appropriate to schedule a public hearing. So your action for tonight would be to classify the application as a type 2 action under seeker, and then a second motion to schedule a public hearing.
Can I have a motion to classify it under seeker as a type 2 action?
I'll place a motion.
Diana, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the issue? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Unanimous, approved.
And then a motion to schedule a public hearing.
A motion to schedule a public hearing. Can I have a motion?
Should it
For
be
when?
for
Your next meeting?
Why are you worried about that?
I like January.
You want January?
Oh, you have another meeting this month?
Yes.
Oh, no, I like December.
You get the
Is there
notices
enough
out?
time to get the notices out?
Tomorrow.
For December 19th, is that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
But understand you might not have a response from the county at that point, so then you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
So a motion to schedule a public hearing for December 19th at 7:30, or soon thereafter.
Mhm.
So moved.
Second.
Wait a minute, we have one motion, a second?
Yeah, second, yes.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Aye. Anyone against? It's approved.
Jeremy,
19.
I pulled up the resolution, so some of those items that John had mentioned as far as the aesthetics, the scenic character, stormwater, those are findings that you'll be.
Adding to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does the board want to authorize drafting of a resolution for consideration of public hearing in case you have a response from the county?
I did.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Does the village need to
We
be
have-
notified?
So I was just gonna say that the village was notified previously, and they did have some comments, so. That was, I believe, one of the county's requirements last time, was to coordinate with the village, so I think we should also be notifying the village again.
We need a motion for that, to notify the village and, what were you
I don't think you
saying?
need a motion to notify the village, we could just send the plans, it's probably what we do.
Okay.
next time.
I believe it requires referral under general municipal law because of the village boundaries, so you have to do that within 10 days of public hearing.
Yes, you have
or
to
do
send
it-
the
Yeah,
public
okay.
hearing notice.
Do it at the same time.
2:30.
I think I sent it to them also.
Yeah, we'll do it at the same time.
And do we want to authorize the drafting of a resolution? Or is that too soon?
You can, and
Yeah.
it's subject to, receiving other,
Can we have that motion?
Yes, you can.
Both
Giovanni,
ends. Both ends.
Diana,
Look in.
seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Motion passes.
Ashley will send
the notice, and the referral to the village.
I have the addresses, so you'll just send me the notice, right?
Okay.
Okay. That's it for tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is Uniplank. Application for site plan and special permit for conversion of a warehouse to light industry on 5.3 acres off New York State Route 17A in the HC district. Initial presentation and commencement of seeker. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Bear. I am here in the Village of Boston on behalf of Engineering Surveying Properties in the applicant Uniplank in European Outdoors. I believe this was a project we had previously done for European Outdoors in the past, and we're going to do amendment subdivision. The only proposed changes would be just an additional signage for the proposed tenant of Uniplank. And the existing tenant, European Outdoors, will remain from the original 36,000 square feet. They will go down to approximately 10,000 square feet, and Uniplank will occupy the remaining space. There is no proposed parking changes. All parking requirements have met needs in the past, and I believe they exceeded as well. And a lot of the conditions were pre-existing. We do not propose to change anything. There will be no increase in employee counts. I believe they only have proposed 13 employees on the total site. European Outdoors has 3, and then Uniplank will have to 10. I believe they just downsized. And we're looking here to have a change of use. I have a lovely list of comments from Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Foley that I would also like to address to the board as well tonight, and hopefully progress the project into scheduling a public hearing.
Okay. Nick? Sean?
Sure, my pleasure. So as the applicant said, this is a change of use, right? It's European Outdoors was approved as a warehouse. The applicant, well, the building department got an application for a sign. The building inspector, I believe, made an inspection in July, and it was discovered that the applicant had a woodworking shop in the premises. So woodworking has been determined to be light industry by the building inspector. If I see something inaccurate, cut me off. So therefore, it's a different use category, so we need a change of use approval from this board. Light industry in the HC required a special use permit. So in addition to the site plan, it's also a special use permit. If I can just go through a couple comments, I don't have that many, because there really are no changes to the site. There are your design standards that you have to consider. You recall that the code requires you to have compliance to the extent practical when there's a change of use. It's not a new installation. Parking, your code requires parking to be brought into compliance if it hasn't already been. There is a requirement for parking behind the side of the building, as you're aware, and then there's also limitations on parking in the HC. I believe you're going to want the Canadian building inspector, whether those are considered legally pre-existing non-conforming conditions. The items that I think you want to discuss with the applicant, which may be able to be brought into compliance, are landscaping. Your current code has landscaping requirements for parking lots that break up the pavement. It may be possible that they do that in connection with this application. And also lighting. I don't know if there's any modifications that can be made to the lighting to maybe decrease the lighting, because as you indicated, or as you heard, they only have 13 employees. So it's unlikely they're going to need to light the entire parking lot. In terms of the sign, they provided 2 plans for the signage. The most recent one showed, I believe, 35.8 square feet of signage on a new wall sign. The code limits it to 32, so I think they need at least 1 variance. We would need information on the existing European outdoor sign and the existing freestanding sign to see if they need additional variances relative to cumulative sign area.
Ashley?
So this is a type 2 action under SECR as reuse of an existing commercial structure to another use that's permitted by special use permit. It would be appropriate to classify the action as type 2 under SECR, and then also it does require a public hearing, so the board may set the public hearing as well.
So we need 2 motions. Okay, can we have a motion to to be lead agency?
You don't have to, you
Because
can
it's
just see a motion
type 2.
to classify the application as type 2 under SECR.
Okay. Can we have a motion to classify this as a type 2 action?
I'll make it.
Neil, second?
I'll second.
Diana? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? It passes unanimously. And the Second motion is public hearing, you say?
To schedule a public hearing. What,
When we
what date
really,
did you?
Could I ask some questions of the applicant first?
Sure.
I don't understand what Uniplank does, or what it is.
I apologize, I was gonna actually like to address more of that as well. They're a cabinet assembly company, and it's all pre-furnished, so there will be no painting, no actual like finishing on the cabinets, and I don't know how to specify exactly. But we will address that in the narrative. We are gonna provide the board with a narrative of what Uniplank does and the whole overall gist of the proposed project. And I do know Mr. Hoffman had comments in regards to that, and addressing concerns of what the use was gonna be in the end, and if there was gonna be any pre-finish, or we would be finishing things on site. So at most, there would be a cabinet assembly, and they would utilize the 5 existing loading docks on site. I do not believe they're gonna increase any traffic flow of the trucks or anything like that. I think it's gonna remain as operational. And I do believe they also mentioned as well, Ross, that we will add everything in the general notes pertaining to codes of what is not permitted on site. So therefore, if they use a certain type of paint, I believe it's 97.3D was the code, I believe. But we were gonna address all that here as well and in the narrative. I can't really speak on their end use other than I know it's cabinet assembly pre-finished.
You assemble things that are already pre-cut?
Yep,
So
pre-cut.
there's no cutting on site, so we don't have any sawdust, no...
No, that's not necessarily true. So with the inspection I did back in July, there is a machinery in there, cutting, drilling.
Okay, then I apologize. I will make sure I include that in the narrative as well.
With that being said,
Yes.
the wood is finished, pre-finished. And so there's like computer equipment that cuts out very specific areas for assembly for the end user. You know, gets the end user, open a box and put it together. But there is some machinery, there is some fire code concerns, which I'll address when they come in and give me some as-built drawings, the architect, or maybe it's engineering properties, but to issue a permit, I'll need a full set of drawings. Touch on fire code, building code, all that stuff is typical.
So we have no problem with fumes. How about sawdust?
So I do not know.
Okay.
As he's been a gentleman that's been on the site before and I haven't.
So sawdust, when I was there, they did have capture systems.
Okay.
Yep.
But
Capture system, so it's all gonna be internal, or is it ducted to the outside?
that's, can't answer that right now. I did see like bags collecting the sawdust.
Okay. I'm just concerned about what we have to look at outside. And
Yeah.
hopefully, if everything's inside, it's nice and simple.
I understand.
Otherwise, I think I'd look at more information.
Yes, we will provide a detailed narrative for you. And I believe Mr. Hoffman also had a comment of getting a dye test done on the existing septic system as well, to make sure that was up to code as well, and was still adequate for the 13 employees. So we will schedule that as well, and potentially have the town witness, if that's appropriate.
What likely would happen is the planning would make it a condition.
Right.
So you don't have to do it now, unless you'd like to.
All right, yep, thank you.
Neil, if I could just add on to what you're saying, what you're asking for is definitely in line with the code, right? The code talks about light industry uses and whether they emit smoke and things like that and dust, so that definitely would need to be addressed in the project narrative that the applicant's going to prepare.
And what's the volume of waste? I would think the way it sounds, it's relatively minor, but...
I cannot give you a square footage. As far as I was aware of, there was no proposed additional dumpsters to be put on site. Everything would have been retained in the existing.
So we don't need any additional dumpster areas or roll-up containers or anything?
I will make sure to include that in the narrative though, so that way that is addressed in case of another bid.
And there's enough room to store everything, all the finished products inside?
Yes.
And they should get out of
There shall be, and
So
I
we're
will
not
make
gonna,
sure
not gonna see any storage containers outside?
No, and I will make sure to make a note, no storage containers, exterior premise for you. Thank you. No, I addressed that concern. I understand that being in the front, you don't want to see that.
What do we have left?
So I think you're obviously going to get the special permit narrative, some more information from the applicant, so I would suggest scheduling a public hearing for January, when you January meetings. That way you'll have that information.
That's a good suggestion.
Thank you. I mean, your next meeting's sounding a little heavy.
We have a date, Sean?
I'm sorry?
A date in January?
I'm sorry, just bear with me one second. Yeah, so January would be January 2nd, I believe, or the 16th.
When do you think you can have that narrative?
January 2nd.
You'll have it submitted
Actually,
January
there's
2nd?
Christmas coming up. I apologize, and I think Ross might be away next week. Can I do the 16th?
Yes.
Then you would have to have it
Thank
in
you.
by
I
the-
saw all of your faces.
So then you need
You
to
would
have
have to
it
have
in by the
it submitted by the
2nd
second.
or the 16th.
Yes, we will have everything provided by the 2nd for the 16th meeting, because then we would have to have it provided.
Frank, any shot that this is gonna need a sprinkler system?
Very, you know, I can't say, I'm gonna let the design professional show me the square footage, cite the code, cite the tables, if a suppression system is gonna be required.
Okay, in that case, we're gonna need to know that, because the site plan may have to be modified, put the tank in somewhere.
And we will provide an architectural set of plans, so that way those can be adjusted, especially if the fire strike.
Well, yeah, but what's the dust and all that?
Yeah, ventilation.
Okay, can we have a motion for a public hearing on the matter for January 16th, did you say, Sean?
That's what
16th?
the applicant asked for, yes.
Okay.
At 7:30 p.m.
Motion, please?
So moved.
Seamus, second? Jeremy? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimously passes. See you on the 16th.
One last thing before the applicant leaves. It's type 2 action, right, so seeker's complete, you can make an application to the ZBA. You can do that parallel with the planning board. I don't know if you intend to do that, but it's something to consider.
I believe that's the.
Because they can't issue an approval until you're concluded your variances.
I understand. Yes, Ross had mentioned something about, he was hoping that with the fact that European outdoors sign was gonna remain existing and non-conformable, non-changing, I shouldn't say non-conforming. But then they were gonna propose a uniplank within the conformance of that 32 square feet, so that we would be under it. Hopefully to avoid that, but I understand with the pre-existing wall-mounted sign, the board might recognize that in the code as two with one. So I understand. We'll follow up that more and see if we need to go to the ZBA. Thank you.
It would help if the architect kind of gave a shot at whether or not you need a sprinkler system.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Next matter is Northern Bear. This is an application for site plan approval for retail and service business, 3.5 acres more or less, New York State Route 17N in the HC district with various overlays, with the AQ3 overlays. Initial presentation and commencement from seeker.
Is that the trick one, Neil?
That's what I was thinking, the last couple of meetings I have been.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. So this is the loan and
Can you
enterprise.
introduce yourself?
Yep, no problem. Nick Regetta from Peters Act and Fowle Engineering, and I have Dan Wazowski from Northern Bear. So what we submitted here for Northern Bear is an as-built plan. The project was approved in 2011 of December. And really what we're here tonight, you know, the goal is there's 2 units here, A and B. Since May, we've been trying to get them rented. And we received a comment letter, and there's a couple items that we wanted to discuss to resolve some issues at the site so that we could get tenants inside these A and B units. Like we said, this is a project that was approved 13 years ago. We're just trying to resolve any issues with the town at this time.
What are the issues?
So we got the letter from the town engineer. Sean, do you want to run through these, or?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Is that what the board would like?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this site originally obtained approval in 1983. It obtained approval for 2 retail uses. In 2011, shortly after this applicant purchased the property, they came before this board for amended site plan approval. 3 retail uses and 1 service business related to a landscaping business. That conditional approval was issued in December of 2011. In 2013, the applicant came in for amended approval to introduce a restaurant. During that application in March of 2013, there was a public hearing, and the applicant's engineer at the time indicated they were having difficulty complying with the original conditions of approval. That was the last time this applicant could ever before this board or made any submissions as far as I know. So the 2011 approval was never perfected, right? They never got a signed site plan. So that expired under your code in 2 years if you're granted extensions. I think they may have gotten 1 or 2 extensions, I don't recall specifically. But without a signed site plan, that approval expired in 2013. I'm not sure exactly how the building department came to the site, but they came to the site and they realized there was never a signed site plan. I believe a violation was issued.
Yes.
And here we are today. So I think right now they're looking really to get the approval that they never completed in 2011 for the 3 retail uses and the 1 service business use.
Can I say something?
Sure.
We had a tenant in there for 13 years.
Legally?
Yeah, she has a CO and everything. The CO was in the tenant of Goshen.
That doesn't mean that you can't have a tenant, it just means that you never got the site plan approval. I don't know anything about your tenant, I'm sorry. Neil, I don't know if you.
Yeah, no, I do remember, there was, you had, my recollection is that you had the dog
Chrome
place,
Slayer, yeah.
and then you had the hairdresser.
Yes.
And then you had you behind.
Yes.
Right, that was there, I knew of it, I knew of it being there. I was not aware that the plans were not signed for the site plan, but I was aware of those uses in there.
Okay, so it is what it is, but
Yeah.
essentially what happens, I believe, under New York State is that if a building permit or CO is issued in error, it's an invalidated building permit or CO. So you need a site plan to get a building permit, and you need to complete the requirements of the building permit to get a CO. Without the signed site plan, it likely was issued in error. But I think the whole purpose we're here tonight is really to resolve this and kind of get everything in compliance and get you going.
So if those COs were not valid, does he have to bring it up to existing code or?
Under the building permit, I'm not sure, it would be existing building code, right?
So it's the existing building code that would come into play. For their prospective tenant, they would come see us. If you're gonna propose any changes to that space, we go with the existing building code, that book.
Would you like to say anything else?
Like I said, tonight we're just here, our main goal is to get tenants instead of here. If we have to amend the resolution to satisfy some of these comments, we're open to doing that. We realize that we do have to get the site plan signed at this time. We're here to get any comments from the board and try to get everything completed to get the site plan signed.
Sean, I know that you mentioned it in your letter to us, or your memo.
Yeah.
What's the nature of the violations essentially, or the non-compliance?
I think the non-compliance dealt with not having a site plan, but also there were some violations of the conditions, if you will. I mean, the large one I think was a log storage pile.
Right, so back in 2011, I think, Sean, the resolution at that time, there was some specific findings. One was all the firewood had to be removed. You drive by there from time to time, you see firewood. So this came to my attention a few months ago with a prospective tenant called the building department, inquiring what it would take for that proposed business to go in there. I really didn't have a handle on this parcel at all, so I started going through the file. First thing that drew my attention was I didn't find a site plan, stamped site plan. So I kind of, raised up a red flag a little bit for me. That's why we're here now.
So they need to get a site plan plus any other permits as required by the code.
Yeah, they would need a site plan approval from this board because the previous one expired. The site plan approval would allow the chairperson to sign the site plan, and that would allow any building permits. I don't know what their use is in water, but they may need approval for Department of Health, depending if they have. How many people are going to be on site on average?
Depends on who's gonna rent it.
No, it doesn't actually. So if you have more than 25 people on site on average for more than 60 days, okay, so it would be less. Okay, so what this board usually does is they'll assign a condition that says you cannot have any use that would have more than 25 people. That's all the sites. And, so they would not allow that based on your, okay.
Wasn't there a condition that they were supposed to stabilize the backyard?
So,
The sill
Slope.
coming down? I thought they were supposed to put a wall, a retaining wall or something, Neil, wasn't there?
I don't recall a requirement
No,
of
I
retaining wall.
remember, because every time I go by it, I think that it has.
I think
to
there's a
be
retaining wall shown on here.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Okay. And certainly the stability of that slope
Yeah,
is a
that slope
question.
was here.
We did get a question on the sign off on it at one point, but I still question it.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing on the site plan that of my concern is where the septic system is in the back. I think it receives a lot of traffic. And if it's a tank, it really doesn't matter. But if it's a leach field, then it really should matter. You're right. I think that's back where all the logs are on that. The question is how much traffic are you getting over that if it's a leach field?
There's nothing really here. There's the log piles over here. So that's just basically
Traffic.
There's nobody driving through there. It's just an opening so I can get around here because I got some, like some pavers or something here. If I got to just walk, basically if I ride through with a skid steer once in a while, just to move something.
I thought you were getting firewood in and out there.
Well, that's over here.
Okay. I don't know how you use the lot. I just look like it. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
Yeah.
So what seemed most complicated is, or most difficult to resolve is this setback thing. Is that an issue?
Which setback thing?
Setback against Florida. So I guess the side yard.
On the south?
Yes.
Okay.
On the bottom of that.
So, the code allows outdoor storage, code limits it to 10%, but it also allows you to waive that as long as it's orderly, the storage is orderly. It prohibits storage in the side yard setback, which this may be in the side yard setback. In fact, if you look at some aerial images, it looks like that lot tile may encroach onto the lot to the south, the now formerly Werner. So that's unclear, but the applicant really hasn't given a defined area where that storage is gonna be. So I can't tell you the percent, although it's probably less than 10%, but it looks like, from what I see, that it's in the side yard setback.
But the building itself is appropriately sited.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Neil, I did look up, you asked about the embankment, or Diana, you asked about the embankment. There was a condition in 2011 requiring a certification from a New York State licensed engineer that all grading and construction of the steep slope at the rear of the property was performed in accordance with approved plans.
I agree. I really thought we received one.
There is I'll double check tomorrow, but Nick, I think we have something from Barry Tarak.
Yes.
We should probably have Sean take a look at
You
it.
have it with you.
You know, it's not mine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is from Barry.
Yeah, I recall seeing something, I don't know if that should be part of the record, Sean.
Sure.
And I mean, we're open to putting, you know, putting a guardrail on the top of the retaining wall, and then, you know, do some matting maybe on the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could, just because the board brought it up, I just want to read you this, it's very short. This is from Barry Tarak, architect, December 2nd, 2013. On November 30th, 2013, I visited the above referenced site to inspect the installation of the interlocking block retaining wall at the rear of the building. I've determined that it is constructed in conformity with the manufacturer's instruction and has the structural integrity to retain the hill behind it. Over 300 white pine trees have been placed across the hillside, which will also be seeded and will assist in retaining the soil in its existing location. A couple things. I think originally there was no retaining wall. In 2012, the applicant came back with a terrace wall system that was eventually abandoned. But in your 2011 application, you're looking for them to indicate that the grading was done properly and this hill was stabilized. That really speaks to the wall, right? The wall was constructed properly. It's not really a question. The question is that embankment. And I haven't been out to the site in a long time, but when I drive past, I see the same thing as the board sees that. It looks like it's continuing to erode and it's unsafe. But the applicant's current design professional can weigh in on it.
Yeah, I mean, I was discussing with Dan, we're open to putting a guide rail down at the bottom here, just in case anything does come down the hill, and possibly trying some matting along the embankment.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Ashley, procedure?
This would be type 2 action under seeker as well, a motion to classify as type 2.
Make that motion.
You have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Neil seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Passes unanimously.
And it does also require referral to the county, which I did today, because I believe it's a major site plan approval. That's what it was back in 2011 or 2013, whatever it was, and since they're changing the use based on the square footage, it would be major, so you would need a public hearing as well.
So,
Yeah, there was a public hearing back in 2012.
I'm comfortable that I have enough information for a public hearing.
well, I want to ask the applicant, when do you think you're ready for a public hearing?
There was one.
Well,
So the prior approval is expired, so any public hearing that was had back in 2011 or 2015, you need to, you're starting the process again essentially.
okay. I mean, we're a little unclear on how to satisfy some of these comments, with regard to, you know, with the log storage pile area. This is, you know, pretty essential to his business.
So I assume you want the log storage pile.
Yes.
Does it need to be in the setback?
Well, we do have a letter here from the town in 2021, and this was from the fire and safety inspector, and they didn't flag, there are two minor things, fire extinguishers in the building and air compressors, and there was
Yeah,
nothing
it's
flagged
not
as
a
far
fire
as
code
the,
issue, it's a zoning issue.
what's that?
It's a zoning issue, not a fire code issue.
As far as the setback?
Yeah, it's in the zoning code.
So
It
it
could
needs to
also be a
be,
fire issue, but there's no way for a fire inspector out there to know where the property line is.
okay, so any chance we can move, if it is over here, we can move it over here?
Basically, you're gonna have to figure out where it is and then move it probably.
So Nick, we talked about, there's a fire code, section 2806 for log storage areas. Whatever you propose, if that's, you know, I know it's part of Dan's business and he wants it, but we have to meet that code section. So keep that in mind of where you propose to store it. This section has parameters as far as height and distances.
So that has to be 100 feet from the
100
building?
feet, that's how I interpret it. We could always go back to the state codes bureau to get their interpretation, but the way I read it now, it has to be 100 feet away.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know,
I don't know where to put it then. There's no place to put it. I don't have any room.
Look at whether or not, if you go low enough or small enough, that it's possible that sometimes that gives you a break. But I'd look into it. You're talking about the fire code, right?
The fire code, so the mechanisms that the state, they could give you a variance, they could interpret it if I'm reading it wrong, but there's a form that we could fill out, you know, we could work on that, if you want to go that way.
I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, it's been there for 10 plus years.
10 plus years doesn't give you a waiver. So we didn't catch it then, that's all.
And then as far as, you know, just potential thoughts in our mind, the log storage area, that's not supposed to be visible from 17F?
Correct, it needs to be screened under the code.
Okay.
I think I might have provided the code reference in my comments.
So I can't rent these spots?
Currently, no.
No, right?
We gotta get the site plan signed, so we gotta have a public hearing first and address the comments.
So how long until the public hearing?
No.
I just wanna get these places rented.
My question is, if we had a pre-existing site
Yeah.
plan approval from prior to 2011,
1983.
we could still do with, in relation to that, that would still be an approved site plan.
Yes, you can still have the retail use.
Right, if there was at least two in there.
Yeah.
It used to be
So
that.
what are you saying?
Didn't Napa used to be
You
in
rent
there?
out 2 spaces?
Excuse me?
I think Napa used to be in the one
Yeah,
side.
it was Power Automotive,
Power
and before that was Rudy's.
Okay.
All right, so you can have 2 retail outlets currently.
Whatever was approved prior to 2011, you can still have.
Because that site plan was signed.
That's the last one that was signed.
Okay.
I think, actually,
Yes, there's
That
a,
was,
so
that was my wife, that was the Golden Bear.
yeah.
the site plan that would be in effect would be the 1983 site plan that allowed 2 retail
Yeah.
uses. I don't know the specific size of those or if there's.
So,
Well, they used the whole thing. What is on the site plan for 83?
I haven't seen it in 10 years.
And that's still in place. If you can. put-
So
put it down
basically,
in
so
compliance.
basically Northern Bear can still be existent. So you're saying that I'm not allowed in there either?
That's correct.
That's what it said. That's part of the assumed proof site plan, is no. But you are the second use maybe.
No, what he's talking about is a landscaping business?
I know.
Yes.
Which is a service business, it's not a retail business. 1983, I believe, was for 2 retail businesses.
So it's,
That was the whole reason you came before this board in 2011, right? Because you wanted your landscaping business on that site.
well, I wanted to have the rentals, the
You
two.
already had 2, so you got 1 rental and then
Well,
the
the-
service business.
Because there's the one rental here, and then that's why I divided this here up for the 2 additional rentals, they're retail. And then in the back, there was a warehouse, and that's where I keep my stuff.
That wasn't, as far as I know, that was not on the 1983 plan.
The answer is to get a site plan approval and you're good, so that's where you put the work.
I would say, Nick, if you don't have that 83 plan in your file, which I think you did, because I think we got it from you, essentially, in 2011. But if you don't have it, I would get a copy of it and review it. Again, I haven't reviewed it in over 10 years, so I can't recall what was on it specific.
That's gonna be filed with the county, correct?
Was it a
No,
subdivision?
it was not a subdivision, no. As
I
far as
I haven't seen it either. I'd like to see this.
Okay.
One more thing if I can. So there's an RV park, Nick, I talked to you right before the meeting here. It looks like it's plugged in. It looks like, I don't know if somebody's, what it is, but it's parked there. What's the intent of that, Dan? Maybe if,
That there is my wife's, and she's gonna sell that, it's for sale.
okay.
Nobody's living in it.
I didn't say anybody was, but.
Always a concern.
Ashley, any?
Can I rent that?
Just go mile down the road in Florida. You can
I'll
rent
just push it down the road.
Just down the road a bit.
I'm gonna tell Mike to say that.
Just the scheduling of the public hearing.
Oh, yeah. When would you, when do you think you'll?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
You have the,
It's up to the board. If you want anything else from the applicant, I'd say the first meeting in January, if you're satisfied with everything that you have, or if you want to conduct a site visit.
I know this,
Okay.
yes, and then,
I think it would make more sense to have it in December rather than January 2nd,
Fine.
after all the
if
holidays.
they're ready.
Yeah, no, I know, but
I mean, if the town doesn't require new plans, then we can have it as soon as possible.
is there any reason not to do plans?
Yeah. I make a motion that we set the public hearing for December 19th.
Yeah, time to get all the notifications.
Sure. I read her face, that's why I asked the question.
Killing
I'll second that motion.
it. All right, we have a motion to schedule a public hearing for December 19th. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It passes unanimously.
Who made the motion? Chair? Chair, no. Second? Second?
No, but
No, it
whatever.
wasn't Jeremy.
Jeremy. That's it?
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Right. See you.
All right. And as far as introductory law number 13, I have more comments that I can give you.
Just to give the board a quick background, you had this at a meeting, you had asked Kelly for some comments, you had asked Kelly also to contact the town board for an extension. The town board came back and really wanted your comments tonight because I only had one board meeting, and that's where it kind of ended. So I put it on your agenda, just to make sure that, but they're okay if you need some additional time.
We do need
So
that.
I did speak with Kelly, I spoke with Mary as well.
I sent this to Kelly.
Yes, I got a copy of your comments as well. So I don't know if anyone else on the board has any comments you want to raise at this time, but, or discuss it at.
Nobody's permitted to raise anything.
I understand that the town, I believe, is still waiting for the DML draft on that as well.
Did you get the stuff from the ERB?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I just sent it out tonight.
Sent it out tonight?
Yeah, I'll make sure you get a copy of it.
I'll send it right now.
Okay, she will take care of that. Thank you. Even better.
Hey, Schwab, quick question.
Yes.
I think I sent it to Kelly.
There was some
I didn't
roads
realize it was.
did on that previous project we just discussed with no site plan. Is there any catch to stop something like that from happening in the future?
Yeah, there is. I'll address it. It happened when I was there. And the answer is, with more staffing, you have more people to catch it. I mean, when you have, I think Frank's close to that now, but at that point in time, there were probably only two of us working in
Yeah,
there.
there was.
And so it didn't always happen.
Okay, the agenda, upcoming meetings.
Sure, so,
Don't make it like this one.
sure, you got a public hearing on 69 Celery. New application, Gerda lot line change, new application, McGowan lot line change. Marte public hearing, Northern Bear public hearing.
Oh, great.
Hey, you guys are the one that said something's public hearing.
Who did that?
I don't think it was everything done yesterday.
And I believe that's all we got.
We have 3 public hearings, what else?
2 lot line adjustments.
Can we keep Frank in the office, maybe?
Yeah.
Lock him in there for a little bit?
Drive a blind.
Where are my keys?
Where are my keys?
So celery and,
Celery, Marte, and Northern Bear.
celery and Northern Bear, so I'll get you those tomorrow.
Big fire truck and get that.
All right, can I have a motion to, we're ready to close the meeting, right? All right,
Are we done?
can I have a motion,
Oh, I have
please?
one question.
Okay,
I have
right.
one question. Can't think of the name of the guy.
The guy with the thing.
Yeah, the guy with the thing. When you go Pumpkin Swamp, the buildings that they built, those
Walmart?
huge warehouse,
Yeah,
thank you, I
yeah.
couldn't think of his name. I thought we wanted them to put trees that were closer together and would block from those houses.
We did talk about it.
Have you seen what they look like?
No,
They're absolutely disgusting. They're half dead, those trees, and nothing is covered. There's no coverage from the houses or from the site looking in there. So is there anybody to look at that?
You're right, so if it's on the site plan, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we could enforce what was supposed to be on, what's on the site plan versus what's on the site.
Because I keep
A
meaning to bring it up and I
resolution.
forget.
usually have a
Especially
word.
Especially since Morad is coming back for a third building, you know, we should make them clean up the
No,
old
it's
ones.
conditions before you start the third.
Yeah.
Let me know.
I just have a real
should have
fast
that one.
Yeah.
comment, and I don't want to discuss it tonight. But, okay, so, but I think that on some of these long-standing projects that have been sitting there with conditional approvals or whatever, we have to start looking at threatened or endangered species again. We're seeing a lot more bald eagles in town than we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
I know some of that's back because I've fed them at least 8 lambs so far. So I can tell you that they're available.
Stop feeding.
Look, I'm trying to get somebody to cover the $3,000, but but I think we have to look at this, especially right down the road from us. There's at least one big subdivision that has the potential have this.
You know, the Eagles are saying the same thing about us, there's too many of us.
No, I think they're thanking me, but, but I think anyhow, in general, I think we have to open that up to stuff, and that's the end of my discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have the motion to adjourn?
Not yet.
No, I'm gonna place a motion.
Okay, second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Everyone have a good